Violence appears to be on the menu at this New Orleans Waffle House in the 2900 block of Elysian Fields. Neighbors say Monday morning's armed robbery at the restaurant is an example of what has become an unfortunate norm here.
They don't seem to be taking the necessary steps to deter this sort of thing. It's happening way too often.
According to the overnight crime report, a man approached two people sitting in a car outside the restaurant and demanded a cell phone. The man reportedly implied that he had a gun and told the people in the car to get out and go into the building. Once inside, the report says the man robbed the restaurant. An unidentified person shot at the suspect. It's unknown if the suspect was hit. Workers at Sammy's Deli next door heard 3 gunshots.
I just pulled up and I just saw a caution tape everywhere. I was like, oh, another one.
There have been about a half dozen armed robberies and shootings at this Waffle House over the past 12 months. That includes the murder of New Orleans rapper Young Greatness, who was shot and killed here last October. People who live and work in the area are now urging the restaurant to increase security measures.
A detail officer, a police officer should be in there 24 hours while they're open.
One resident said the Waffle House is a target for crime because it's open 24 hours and not well lit, and it's easy to get in and out of the area.
The interstate right there, you get to the neighborhood either way you go.
Workers at Sammy's Deli say the situation next door is scary.
It's very concerning. It could definitely affect our business crime-wise.
And the armed robbery suspect is still at large. We reached out to Waffle House for comment, but their spokesperson didn't get back with us in time for this newscast. We're live in the St. Roch neighborhood. Paul Murphy, Eyewitness News.
Paul, thank you. And as Paul mentioned, one of the highest profile crimes to take place at that particular Waffle House was the murder of New Orleans rapper Young Greatness last fall. Police found the body of 34-year-old Theodore Jones with a single gunshot wound early in the morning of October 29th. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Then last spring, 2 armed robberies there in under a month. In the crime in April, a customer fired a shot and hit one of the suspects as they got away with cash from the register. If you have information that could help investigators solve this latest armed robbery, call Crime Stoppers.